I want to begin today.
God, these are always super fucking cringy, but I'll just listen to this and see what the fuck happens to my brain.
With a case at Shawnee State University in Ohio.
Okay, what connects my roads?
By a judge that he must use the preferred pronouns of a transgender student, or he can be fired if he doesn't. The professor claims that this requirement is discriminatory against him. It violates his free speech. It violates his religious liberty. But the court said, no, you can be forced to pretend that a male student is female. The court said it is reasonable for you to be made to participate in the delusion of a gender-confused student. Shawnee State University philosophy professor Nick.
Oh my god, it's so fucking hilariously transphobic. But it's what's interesting about it is that it's how do I word this? It's like harder to dig into, I guess, because his worldview on transgenderism is totally fucking detached from everyone else. Right? So he believes that it's a straight up delusion to be transgender, okay? Transitioning from male to female, complete and utter delusion. Nothing, no questions about it, okay? Complete delusion. Like, okay. Interesting. Whereas most other people, it's like, no, it's not a delusion, you fuck. So he's just super detached from reality, obviously. So it's hard to dig into because, like, he has a completely different worldview. And I'm wondering if that's, like, a compromise. So, like, he has to have this worldview to make these takes, pretty much, right? Because if he doesn't, he's kind of fucked. So.
Dr. Nicholas Merryweather has gotten himself into trouble at his work. Here's the background. Dr. Merryweather last year was responding to a male student's question during class. And in responding, Dr. Merryweather said, "Yes, sir." He apparently refers to all of his students as sir or ma'am and calls them Mr. or Ms. and then their last name when referring to him. If you can imagine it, this guy apparently
it's kind of cringe. It's pretty boomer.
Actually being polite and courteous and having etiquette. Okay, he's one of those weirdos.
I don't know.
Anyway,
that's
so
not really.
He's been doing this, referring to people this way.
God. Okay, that's not exactly courteous and etiquette. Just because someone's like ma'am or sir isn't specifically proper etiquette. Also, it would be proper etiquette to not misgender somebody. But again, he has a completely different worldview, so he thinks it's pure delusion to think that you're transgender. So obviously he's gonna like. Yeah. So it's not proper etiquette to believe somebody's quote unquote delusions. I guess. But yeah, it's really not proper etiquette to refer to somebody as, like, it's, you can be polite without calling everyone by sir and miss and ma'am and sir. Right? Because, like, what if you characterize somebody's status, right? So you say miss if somebody's not married, and you say ma'am if they are. Mrs. and miss. So you would say Mrs. if they're married and Ms. if they're not. So, like, are you being rude if you mischaracterize that because you don't actually have prior knowledge? Anyways, it's dumb. What's your stance on what? What's my stance on what? On this video? Well, currently, it's that he's super transphobic. Because he believes that transgenderism is complete and utter delusion, which is not true.
Presumably his whole life, just about. But this time it was a problem. Turns out the sir that he was addressing prefers to be a man.
Okay, so then call him a man. What? So yeah, you're just not being courteous. If somebody wants to be called a ma'am, you can call them a ma'am. If it's courteous for you to call people ma'ams and sirs, and if somebody wants to be called a sir, then just call them sir. It's still courteous. You're not breaking any laws. I thought this was going to be a story about like somebody wanting to be called sir, and they only say, and they're super used to saying ma'am and sir. I'd be like, okay, that's a little bit more understandable because like it's hard for somebody to change their language. And I'm assuming that this person's pretty old if they're using ma'am and sir still. So I'd be like, okay, a little bit more. But no, it's literally just somebody saying, like, oh, please refer to me as sir, or please refer to me as ma'am. And the guy's like, no.
Even though he is, in fact, a sir. He was a biological male who identifies as female. So,
so he's a ma'am.
Approached the professor after class.
She's ma'am.
Demanded to be referred to by female pronouns.
Dr.
Merryweather said he couldn't do that.
Why not?
Now, according to the Alliance Defending Freedom, which is the organization that's been representing Dr. Merryweather, the student then, quote, became aggressive, circling around him, getting in his face in a threatening fashion while telling him, then I guess this means I can call you a C word. See you next Tuesday. Except he said the word. Before walking away, the student promised to get Mr.
So that's problematic. Would you watch a Milton Friedman video? Sure, yeah. For content, yeah. After this one, I'll watch a Milton Friedman video. What was I on? Oh yeah, so this is problematic because like it gives a bad rap if whoever this person was actually being aggressive. Like I'm not sure how true this is and stuff yet, but if this person was actually being aggressive as fuck and getting in his face, that's not good. Don't do that. Yes, I know that the professor's being transphobic, but don't be more understanding, okay? Dude's probably a boomer. Dude's got some, like, clearly misaligned. It doesn't help to get super aggro in somebody's face when they don't understand your point of view. It's not helpful. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. It gives you a bad rap. We saw this with Steven Crowder and the white male privilege, changed my mind, where some person got up into his face and started yelling at him and calling him all this shit. It's not helpful. It doesn't help. It fuels his fire because he gets to say, like, look at these radical fuck. No, that's some more Jordan Peterson. He just gets to be like, oh, look at these radical fucking libtards. They're fucking attacking me. Well, it's not a normal kind of argument. It's rather an existential discussion. What? Well, you're right, though. What do you, like, what, the professor stance? What is not a normal kind of argument? What do you mean? Oh, do I want to pop out chat? Yeah, fuck it. Pop up chat right here. So you can see better. I have my chat like that. Like what are you saying is not a normal kind of argument? I'm curious.
To get Dr. Merryweather fired.
Here, I'll wait. Fuck. White privilege exists, but so does black privilege. It depends on the situation. Well, not really. What? We held the message of social identity. Wow. It held this message. Amazing. Held the message for reason, identity. Allowed to post. Yeah, fuck it. White privilege exists, but so does black privilege. If you want to talk about that more in depth, we can. I have a video up on like Carter's thing. You can watch that. But so the whole thing of white privilege is that on the whole, in the entirety of the United States, which class of people has more privilege than another? And you would have to agree that white people have more privilege than black people. Sure, there might be cases of black privilege existing. So maybe a black person in a predominantly black neighborhood has better access to whatever, okay? Maybe anything, right? It's more of a majority of privilege. Yeah, sure. Okay, we could characterize that majority of privilege. So yeah, sure. Some cases of black privilege might exist, but there's a majority of white privilege in existence. So we say that white people have privilege because, and by that we mean that white people have more privilege. And there might be certain cases of black privilege. Maybe you can consider that like, okay, athleticism, you might be able to consider some form of that. Well, no, you don't have to consider it. Like it seems to be, there appears to be that's my credit card being just shown on screen. Nice meme. There seems to be some of our black privilege, right? Because black people tend to be way more athletic than people. Privilege is something you haven't earned, so they haven't earned that massive athleticism. Typically, it's mostly genetic. So yeah, anyways. White privilege comes from the culture. A lot of mishappenings of the black community are self-inflicted, not but all. What? A lot of mishappenings of the black community are self-inflicted, not... I'm not sure about that. I need to. You need to clarify this statement more. The mishappenings of black community are self-inflicted. I need a little bit more clarification on that one. Because if the prof doesn't acknowledge her identity, he ignores her identity, so her emotions are justified. Yeah, well, yeah. Because if the prof doesn't acknowledge her identity, he ignores her identity. Yeah, but the prof has a completely different worldview, so you can't just start yelling at the prof, because then he'll never understand. Largely the single mother rate and stuff. Perhaps, but we would need to go... I would need to have like a super... I think this would require a larger discussion, and I'm on a different thing right now, so... yeah, that's where you're right. Okay, yeah, okay, perfect. Well, then am I wrong anywhere? I don't think I'm wrong anywhere. I think we agree. We just have a different... anyways, yeah, I think we're good. I'm going to go back to it. And then we'll get on these other topics. Okay, guys? Okay, let me just get through this video. It's 4 minutes long. Let me get through this. We'll go through the other stuff. Okay, nonstop. Discog. We'll dig into your stuff, too. If I get pulled over by a racist black cop, in that situation, I'll have privilege. It's purely situational. Well, yeah, but again, so we're talking about on the whole, right? So on the whole, you're most likely... A black person is most likely going to get pulled over by a white racist person than a white person getting pulled over by a racist black person. That's just statistically true. So, of course, there might be a situation where you get pulled over by a racist black cop, but it's really, really super unlikely. Where it's pretty likely, depending on where you live, that you get pulled over by a white racist cop. Yeah. So that's why, on the whole, that's why we say like white privilege. What most people mean by white privilege, what I mean by white privilege, is that on the whole, you have more privileges in the society you live in over another race. So if you lived in a different country, you might consider it X privilege of whoever lives there. So even if you move to another country, let's say you're purely English speaking and you move to France, you might consider it French privilege because you don't speak French, so you have less opportunities to get jobs there because you can't speak French. There are black racist cops too. Of course there are black racist cops, but there's not as many as white racist cops. Can I please get through this video?
Sounds like a lovely young man. Reading more from ADF, here's what happened next. They say, quote, the student filed a complaint with the university, which launched a formal investigation. As a Christian, Dr. Merryweather believes that God has created human beings in his image as a male or female, and that God does not make mistakes. To call a man a woman or vice versa would be to say something that is just not true and to endorse an ideology that conflicts with his religious beliefs. So Dr. Merryweather offered a compromise. He would refer to the student by a first or last name only. The student filed a complaint with the university, which launched a formal investigation.
Okay, yeah, justified complaint.
Merryweather believes that God has created human beings in his image as a male or female, and that God does not make mistakes. To call a man
So on this point, it depends on what you consider male and female, which of course Matt Walsh and this professor have a completely different mindset on what male and female means, and we would have to dig into that on a person-to-person basis. But in simplifications, Matt Walsh's opinion on what a male and female are is probably incorrect, but we'd have to dig into it on what they think is. And I'm pretty sure both of their ideas of what a male and female are would differ themselves. So whatever Matt Walsh thinks is a male would probably be different than whatever the professor thinks is male, and same with females. So it depends on what did God mean by male and female. If you just think that male and female, the difference between male and female is based on roles, pretty much, which is largely why not really, but I would think that. So the reason I think gender is a construct. Yeah, but you're talking about male equals penis, female equals vagina. but that's like super simplistic, and that's only talking about sex. We're talking about gender. Gender is typically defined as the pretty much the roles you take in a society. But male and female is scientifically and biological ways. Yeah, sex is, but usually when you're talking to somebody, you're not referring to their sex. But it's not. No, your gender isn't based on your genitals. Your sex is based on your genitals. There are people with variations too. Yeah. So your sex is based on your genitals. Your gender is based on society, pretty much. And if you're gonna say that gender is based on genitals, then why do we have the word genital? Why do we have the word gender and sex? Okay, it's based on Y chromosome. No, that's your sex. Your sex is based on biological factors. Your gender is based on societal factors. That's why there are two words. These two words don't mean the exact same thing. That's why we have two words, because they describe two different things. Gender is societal, and sex is biological. And also, if you're going to say that, okay, well, I only refer to people based on a biological sense, that's pretty dumb. I don't agree that there's, well, we'll see. I don't agree that there's infinite genders. You either believe that there is two or there's infinite. Synonym? No, that's not really a synonym. They're different. So gender is societal. Your gender is the role. Typically, historically, your gender is what role you played in society. I don't agree there's infinite genders. I also don't agree that there's infinite genders. I agree that there is no such thing as gender. But we live in a binary sense. This is a huge fucking discussion. This will go on forever. But in the sense that, like, I don't believe that there's any such thing as gender. But currently, we live in a binary society, and people are comfortable with the gender binary, so we live within that binary. They used to mean the same thing until the STW changed the definition. Not true. We can dig into that, by the way, but that's not true. Just an FYI. The basic, basically, in a simple example of this, like 500 years ago, there's evidence of them using the word they to describe somebody, like genderless. Like they used as a genderless pronoun has been used many, many, many times, right? And has been used for many, many years. And you do this all the time. When you don't know what somebody's gender is, you refer to them as they. And you do this, unknowingly for the most part. But yeah, they as a gender neutral pronoun has been used for many, many years. So no, gender and sex has not meant the same thing for a long time, and the SJWs didn't change that. Gender and sex have been different for many years. You can be a effeminate male, but he's still a male, yo. Yeah, of course. You can be an effeminate male, and if you identify as a male, then you're a male. That's the point, right? Exactly. Like, so you agree with me on some point, right? That you can be effeminate, but still be a male. Matt Walsh thinks that if you're in any way effeminate, you are a female. Now, he won't directly admit to this because it would get really sticky and he'd look like an idiot. But Matt Walsh's stance on male and female is that if you have long hair, if you can't grow facial hair, pretty much in a basic sense, if you have long hair, if you can't grow facial hair, if you wear a dress, if you were to dress up in front of Matt Walsh with long hair and he would get stuck and like a dress on and you would look like a female, you would be female to him. He would call you female, but then you get stuck because he'd be like, oh, but I don't have a vagina. So, right, you can be effeminate and still male. It's based on what you identify as. And exactly, yeah, you can be a masculine female. You can be super jacked and still be a female because it all depends on what you identify with. Isn't gender biological? No, gender is not biological. Sex is biological. Those genders did what biology would allow and is still true to this day. Those genders did what biology would? What do you mean? My gender is onion. Good meme. I don't think he believes that. Can you show us where Matt said that? So it's not going to be in this video, but it's a culmination of me watching many videos. Now, if we could throw that out the window and say that he doesn't believe that, but typically, most people believe that. Where does it say? Where did you say this? Typically people that I've talked to basically think that like there are certain characteristics that a female falls under, and it all comes from having a vagina. I think I'm wording that properly. And there's typical things that males fall under, and it all comes down to having a penis. So if you have a penis, you're automatically a male, and if you have a vagina, you're automatically female, even though that's not how gender works. It's hard to think, but it's not going to be in this video where Matt Walsh. It's just a culmination of like his opinions on a million different things, and it's hard to get down to one thing because he'll jump because it's hard to get stuck on one thing. Because if somebody dresses up as a female, if somebody looks exactly like your typical definition of a female, you're going to call them she. And we've caught Ben Shapiro doing this many times where he accidentally properly genders somebody when he means to misgender them because they look exactly, they are female. So females on average more fragile, therefore generally males were hunters and gatherers and females gatherers. Yeah, but some females can be hunters and some males can be gatherers. That doesn't make them the opposite sex and stuff like that, right? You could be male and be a gatherer. You could be a female and a hunter. Just because you claim something doesn't mean it's true. Or Nazis could claim that the Jews, they are Jews to avoid persecution. Sure. Thanks for the follow, though. Yeah, but biology pushed them into those roles. No. Well, let's see. Biology pushed them into those roles. You're getting evolution wrong a little bit. I see what you're trying to get at. I'm pretty sure, right? That you're basically saying that, okay, since we had to go into hunter-gatherer roles because of evolution, therefore we have a set binary of like your genders based on things. But we've evolved as a society that we have social interactions with people that are very deeper than just we fuck now, make baby, I need food, go hunt. You know, like that's why gender is a social thing and sex is a biological thing. And yes, there are differences between the two through evolution, but those differences don't make it so that female and male are specific things. There's a binary, and you can be extremely masculine and still female, still identify as a female, and you can be extremely effeminate and still identify as a male, of course. Or I could be an onion. No. And stop with that before I have to fucking ban you. So I'm glad we're on this topic, though, because we're... What? Milton Freeman. I want to see you debate this video. Oh, okay. I don't know why it didn't give me the... Did you put the link in properly, or is it... I think I found the video.
Over here.
Okay, it's 2 minutes. I'll get this after, because we're on the pronoun thing right now. Yeah. Female is specifically not having a Y chromosome. Yeah, sex, but not gender. You're misunderstanding that gender is a social thing. So from a societal standpoint, why wouldn't you just call someone that what they present as for simplicity's sake? Well, yeah, but that's what the so okay, let me read this whole thing. Why wouldn't you just call someone what they present as for simplicity's sake? And most people do this, including the people you're naming, like Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh. Having a guess and asking is just a mess. Having to guess and asking is just a mess. No, but they don't do this. There's a clip of Ben Shapiro, and I wish I could find it, but I might have to. I'll dig for it. It'll be really hard to find. But there's a clip where Ben Shapiro is talking about this exact thing, and he, I'm pretty sure there was a transgender female on screen, and he goes, he called she a she properly, but had to backtrack on it because he has to put up the front that like, oh, I can't. She looked exactly like a female. She is female. But because he has this other ideology, he had to misgender her. Even though she looks exact, she was dressed up like exactly what we're talking about. Society calling somebody by what they present as themselves, which is exactly what I'm advocating here. Just calling somebody by what they present, and then asking them, because people present stuff in different ways, right? Like I'm not male because I wear pants. I'm male because I identify with the male gender. But yeah, and respectfully asking is the best way to get to it. because guessing is sticky, right? We have the Contra Points debacle, I'll call it, where she felt extremely misgendered, or she felt very dysphoric because she was in a space where everyone was using they them pronouns, where she makes a supreme effort to be referred to as she her. He says in a debate he won't use their pronouns, but at dinner he would use their pronouns. Yeah, but then he's like, but why? Why wouldn't you just use their pronouns in the debate as well? Is Canada an American colony? No, Canada's a British colony. We told them to fuck off after World War II. He said he won't use their pronouns, but at dinner he would use their pronouns. So he's only polite to people when having dinner with them. But if he's having any other conversation, if he's having a debate with them, all bets are off. Triggered dysphoria. Looks female except the PP and Y chromosome. By the way, drag queens are typically an offense to women. What? So, there's gender, there's reassignment surgery, right, where you can turn your PP into a vajayjay. So there's that. And soon enough, probably down the line, there will be chromosomal realignment operations. But that's not here, so we won't need to talk about it. Venture Pro, who are you talking about? What? You just asked me, is Canada American? What? Yeah, so anyways, for the most part, the easiest way to start this is that you refer to somebody by how they appear. Okay? Very easy. Fine. What? How come you can't wear blackface to identify as a black person? You can wear a drag and be able to look like a woman. Here, I'll allow that. It just got bugged up anyways. How come you can't wear blackface whenever as a black person and be allowed to look like a woman? Well, that's different. Blackface is typically used to demean black people, whereas drag is typically a what's it called? What's it typically called? What's the word for it? It's like an you're kind of like hyper focusing on feminine features is, I think, a way to describe drag. I would need to talk to somebody in the drag community to get a better one of this, but I'm talking about a bunch of people, but yes, one of them was Ben Shapiro. Wait 5 years and that will try to be normalized. What, blackface? I don't know about that. Artist way of expression. So like also blackface is for the most part obviously like not good, but there are some instances, right? You have what the fuck's the movie called? Rolling Thunder or whatever, where Robert Downey Jr. is wearing blackface. The real question is how did Robert Downey Jr. get away with one of the blackest stereotypes characters and get away with it? Because it was art. It was separating the artist from the art. No one is dressing up in drag and no one dresses up in drag to demean women. Yeah. But people dress up in blackface to demean black people. Drag queens don't identify as women, although they present themselves as a trashy woman and have vulgar, effeminate names. Well, that's just not true. They don't dress up as trashy women. I wouldn't consider drag queens trashy women, and they don't have... you just have a different opinion of what a trashy woman is and a vulgar, feminine names. You just kind of... I guess you don't like the names like of... whatever they... Yeah, Tropic Thunder. Thank you. Is race dysphoria a thing? No, because race is a different thing than gender. Race is biological. Gender is social. What about... I'll allow this too. What about black people wearing whiteface? Like the movie White Girls, should that be considered offensive because I just thought it was a funny movie? Well, no, the same way we don't find Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal of a black male in Tropic Thunder as not offensive. We wouldn't assume that that's offensive as well, right? Yeah, but I would say that Jessica Yaniv, I think is it? Yaniv? I would say that she's a reprehensible human being and she's fucking disgusting. She's also has basically no follower base on any social media. But yeah, I don't like her. So drag queens don't have joke names and dress up hyper. I'm not in the drag community. I don't know why they do these things. Talk to somebody in the drag community. If you believe, so I don't have an opinion on drag names and like how they do stuff because I don't know. So you might think that they're hypersexualized. They probably don't think they're hypersexualized. I don't know. I'm not in the drag community. Yeah, for the most part, what I've heard about Jessica, she's a reprehensible human being and is a complete fucking disgrace to the LGBTQ community. Don't you guys think that the left's going a little too far by being offended by things? I need more. You need to be more specific on that one. Because I would say no, mostly because a lot of right-wingers also get super triggered about stuff. And we can go find some examples of that.
A woman or vice versa would be to say something that is just not true and to endorse an ideology that conflicts with his religious beliefs. So Dr. Merryweather offered a compromise. He would refer to the student by a first or last name only.
Sure.
Perfectly reasonable compromise that respects the freedoms of everybody involved. But that was not enough for university officials. Instead, they formally charged Dr. Merryweather, claiming that he created a hostile environment for the student. Later, they placed a written warning in his personnel file that threatened, quote, further corrective actions if he did not refer to students using pronouns that reflect their self-asserted gender identity. The university warned Dr. Merryweather that he'd be in violation of its non-discrimination policy if he agreed to refer to men as women while putting a disclaimer in his syllabus saying he was being compelled to do so against his beliefs. So apparently...
University of the girl saying there's too many white people in here is way too far. The video from Virginia University of the girl saying there's way too many white people in here is way too far. Yeah, okay, that's one person. What? What do you mean? I'm confused.
That was another compromise that
Just a minute, bro. Drag queens use names like smutty miss and overly glamorize and make dirty sex jokes that demean the women they act as. Sorry, bro. I'm not in the drag community. I don't know the ins and out of the drag community. I'm pretty sure you don't either. But if you know somebody that's part of the drag community that would like to talk about this, great. If I find somebody that's in the drag community that can help me out with this, great. I don't know enough about the drag community to talk about this. But yes, I am aware of some people who are against drag queens because of whatever fucking reasons. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to be like, nah, fuck those people. Yeah, I don't think their main motivation is to demean women. Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure their main motivation isn't to demean women. Okay? While people who wear blackface, typically their main motivation is to demean black people. You don't need to be in the community to have seen a drag show. Me saying I'm not in the community means I don't watch drag shows. That's what that means. I don't think I've ever watched a single drag show in my fucking existence, okay? When I say I'm not part of that community, I don't watch drag shows. Motivational ideals and opportunity via drag shows. Perhaps. I have no idea. I would need to ask somebody in the drag community.
Dr. Merryweather offered, he said, apparently, okay, I'll use the pronoun, the incorrect pronoun, but I'm going to put something in the syllabus saying...
Yeah, that's dumb. What? Of course you can't do that. What the fuck? Yeah, I'll use the pronouns, but I'll put a disclaimer in the syllabus that I don't mean it. Yeah, of course you can't do that. What the fuck?
that I'm being forced to do this. That was no good either.
Of course not. What do you mean? Yeah, I agree that I won't say I hate black people. But I'm going to put it in the syllabus that I hate black people. What the fuck? Drag is really not that sexual, to be honest. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
The university is loud and clear. You must endorse the university's favored ideology or be punished. There is no room for dissent.
Now, there's not much wiggle room in this because this professor is working for a university. And so this is a company policy, basically. If you don't want to follow the company policy, get a new job. This is pretty much the pinnacle of all things that, like, the right agrees with, right, is that, oh, just get a new job. So you should tell this professor to get a new job.
Okay, so
as a Republican, I agree with you on the gender stuff or this thing. But this is the same thing. You are all lying to yourselves because of SJW virtue signaling. True. You know what? You're right. On the new job. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the argument from Republicans all the time. I'm glad you're consistent on it. Is, oh, you're being abused at your job or whatever, just get a new one. So, Matt Walsh here should be telling this professor to get a new job. Clearly.
That's the lead up to the lawsuit. And then eventually Merryweather filed a lawsuit. And all the Dr.
It's a company policy. The university has a set of rules. If you don't follow those rules as a professor, get the fuck out. It's very simple.
Wants to do, just to be clear, just to reiterate this, all he wants to do is his job. Okay, he wants to do his job as a professor and not be forced.
Yeah, but your job as a professor is to socialize with people. You have to talk with people. So you have to there's an expectation of politeness, okay? And you're not being polite by misgendering somebody. You probably could have got away with the last name only thing. You didn't really go in on that. It just said that was an option. And then I guess the professor said no and said that I will say the right pronoun, but I'm going to put it in my syllabus that I'm joking. SJW doesn't mean all left ideas. Okay, but you're just being dumb, anarcho-itinerary. And we can talk about, if you want, you can hop on a Discord and tell me more of what you mean, but I don't really know what you're talking about. You're kind of just going off on a million things. Oh, you're talking about the drag store stuff. Yeah, well, I can't really talk about that because I'm not in the drag community, so I really have no idea. But it's a weird tangent that you go, you're all lying to yourself because of SJW virtue signaling. It's like, okay.
Forced to tell a lie. That's it. He wants to do his job without being forced to lie. That's it.
But he's not lying. He just has a complete misunderstanding of how gender works. That's all. He's not lying. He just doesn't understand. I think there's a case to be made about all the money government gives to the colleges, though. Well, what do you mean? Like, you're saying that there's enough money going into them to make them public officials? Because I would super disagree with you, because Canada subsidizes colleges even more. And colleges are more public than, like, they're technically not considered private colleges in Canada, but we still, but every worker there is considered a private worker. They don't have to, like, they're not government workers anyways. And sticking to the factual standard, like, if gender is fluid, why not use sex? Well, because you typically don't run around looking at people's nuts, right? That's why. Well, your gender doesn't matter. Sure. But that's not how, like, talking works. That's not how language works. That's why gender exists, because it's the social aspect of your... If we were just going off of sex, right, then people would be hyper-focusing on, like, biological differences between men and women, but you're not. And that's why you're, like... If that was true, if you're just looking at sex, then the whole world would be different. You're pretty much getting into gender abolitionism there, which nobody's ready for. Like, there's no point in referring to somebody by their sex, right? This is like the argument of, like, in the future, in the far future, we might not separate wrestling classes with male and female. It might only be levels of testosterone, weight, and height. That's where you're kind of going with this. Like, the military only referring to people by their sex is maybe true. And if it is true, then that means that the military is only looking at what can you do biologically, which is fine. But then that means that they shouldn't. But anytime, but that means if that's true, if the military only looks at you by your sex, depending on how you score on the test, or whatever you're, like, referring to, whatever score they get, wherever they land, then you'd be called male or female, right? So let's say a male officer, right? A male, not an officer, I guess that's a rank, but a male military personnel does boot camp and scores the same score as the average woman, is he called a woman because he scored just as high as like all the women? Or are you purely going by genitalia, in which case nobody does that? Like, what do you mean by sex? Like, what do you mean the military only refers to you by sex? Because then because it's like straight up boiling down to just XY chromosomes, because it's like kind of, again, nobody does that. Nobody's testing every single person that walks up into the military to see if they have an XY chromosome.
That's his only request. He's not asking this student to do anything. He's not trying to.
What do you think about trans women taking over women's sports? They're getting first in everything because of biological advantages. It would mean the end of women's sports eventually. This one's interesting. I would need to more. I think like this would require a larger discussion. I think it's a little bit off topic from the rest of the stuff. But my typical, I think my answer. It's hard. So if you've ever watched Destiny respond to it, my answer pretty much aligns with that, and that took like a 3-hour thing, so I'm not going to sit here for 3 hours talking about it, especially since it's over chat. But essentially my position is that it might be something we needed to look into in the future, but right now we don't really need to look into it because it's not a big deal. It's like what usually happens, what seems to bear out is that somebody might win on a state level, maybe max. There's like one person I think won on a state level. Usually these things happen in high school, but once they make it to the higher levels, typically they end up falling and not really being a superstar, right? They're not like transgender male to female athletes typically aren't like instantaneous superstars, best in the world, right? They have a lot of other issues going on that could hamper their development, and then they might win a couple things here and there, and then they get to a high enough level and they stop being competitive because super high competitive athletes are there for a reason, right? So usually they don't make it, so it's not a huge deal, so we don't really need to deal with it right now, but it might need to be a discussion in the future. We might need to open up discussion in the future. It's definitely possible. Myself, as more of a gender abolitionist, would say that it shouldn't really matter. We should all be able to compete in a similar level. The reason why we have a male and female division in the first place is because females wanted representation in the sports being played. And if you didn't have that, if we went pure abolitionists, of course, then you wouldn't have any. Basically, women wouldn't have any spotlight for sports because it would just be completely male dominated. So we opened it up to male. We split it into male and female, and now female could essentially have, even though they don't, but they could have equal coverage of the sport because it'd be two different leagues. You could cover the leagues the same way over the news. Obviously, they don't right now because of pretty much capitalism and sexism up until I don't know how recently, but that's a whole other discussion. Yeah, it's a tough one. Definitely a tough one to go over with just typing. So if you want to hop in Discord, because we will get into like paragraphs, and it's really hard to read entire paragraphs and respond to them, and then you have to write a whole other paragraph. Okay, I would say that's a fair statement. That since it really doesn't affect you, you don't have an opinion on it. That's good. It's a good stance to take. Hopefully, you would take the same thing on abortion. But that's a good libertarian stance. Doesn't affect you. Why should you care? Perfect. Should go talk to Caitlin Bennett. Oh, that video is so fucking hilarious. What do you think about this? I don't care. Oh, true.
Take anything away from this student. He's not trying to impose anything on this student.
Well, he is, actually. He's trying to impose his worldview on the student. He's trying to impose... So the professor believes that the student is in complete delusion of reality, and he's trying to impose that on him by telling him that he's a liar, essentially. Pro-choice, cool, awesome, sick. We'll have to start a discussion on that either.
There are ways that the professor could refrain from lying while also refraining from using any pronouns that this poor student might find traumatic. But even those compromises aren't good enough for the student or for the university. No, they need the lie, the full lie.
It's not a lie, you dumb fuck. You just don't understand.
So help you God. Well, I hope you enjoyed that clip.
Alright, that made me more fucking injure myself in a video game. Alright, I'll get to the Milton Friedman thing in a second. My dude Reno. If there's anything else you want to talk about based on the video, hit me up. But I'll play a Milton Friedman video right after. Okay. And a stream marker so I can cut that out. Put it on the YouTube. The YouTube. I'm also gonna take a piss before I watch the video because I need to again because I chugged this water bottle fucking quick and it came back to bite me in the ass. I think the reason the gender and abortion thing are rough to talk about is because both sides talk past each other. For example, you see gender as a social construct, and I see it as linked to sex, so there's not really a middle ground. Not really a middle ground. Yeah, well, yeah, basically, right? We just have completely different understandings of how the world works. Which is like the big problem with talking to a lot of people. So we would need to have like super long form discussions to see if you would come to the understanding of my position, which I believe is the correct one, and a lot of people agree with me that it's the correct one, and we could talk about that. But yes, of course, we'll take a long form discussion, and it's very hard to do that in a short period of time, and also and yelling at somebody completely stops that conversation dead in its tracks. So there's that too. Like screaming at somebody to agree with you obviously will stop that conversation dead in its tracks. So that's a no bueno. I need fuck. I need this. Okay. Yeah, you're 100% right that a lot of stuff. This is the same thing with talking to Nick Fuentes about race, like race realism stuff like that. Talking to alt-writers about racism and whatnot is very difficult because they have a completely different worldview on what race is. Nick Fuentes sees a black person as an inferior human being. So you have to go through that wall first, which is obviously a task. So you view gender as a link to sex. I view it as a social construct. I would say that most people agree with my stance, and many historians, I guess, or linguistics, language people agree with my stance on it. This has been true for many, many years. Blah 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 blah. But yeah, it requires a discussion, for certain. That's why I'm here. To discuss. Oh, fuck this.